All right, so we just recorded this praises song, this vibey worship song, and you just learned it and just recorded it, and we're just wanting you to give us some thoughts and tips on how you approached it.
Well, when I listened to it, the first thing that I noticed was the keyboard part wasn't too busy, but there was still presence with it, and so I took a moment and just kind of listened to the drum and the bass and what kind of groove it was being set. And there was a little bit of production with some other keyboard stuff to kind of understand the vibe of the song. So that kind of helped me know my place with the drum and bass, and then with the little extra nuances allowed me to understand how can I support the vocal melody or even some of the melody lead lines that the vocal has. So I just listened to it. I already had the understanding, don't overplay, and then before I started playing it, what would be a good support in regards to where I place my chords, and also what sound I would use as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about you. I'm thinking this is not going to be a very fun song for you because I put this arpeggiated kind of bell synth line, which is kind of running throughout, which is right in your register. And so you can't play too much, but yet we want to feel the humanness of what you're doing. Anyways, I thought you did a great job with that. Can you elaborate any more on the sounds you chose and why you chose them?
The main sound that I used was just the classic, Fender Rhodes sound. Those can be either very warm or also very bright because of the mechanics of the Rhodes. So we took the approach of going a little bit more warmer with the sound, so it kind of sits in more like a pad instead of it being more percussive because of the extra bells that you have. So I had a Rhodes sound with a subtle pad underneath it to kind of help glue it and sustain the sound, since I wasn't being very percussive and I was holding kind of like whole notes sometimes and half notes. It was like that pad helped glue the Rhodes together.
A lot of times as a worship leader, I'm just strumming along and really bringing a lot of support to whatever's going on, but because I was playing all those guitar solos, we were relying on you to really hold down the fort, and did a great job. All right, thanks. All right, Sam, we just did praises, and you helped arrange it and put it together and played all the low notes. Tell us what your approach was.
Well, this song, one of the things was choosing the right instrument for the song. And the song requires a sound that's a lot warmer, not as harsh. So even choosing a P bass was a big part of it. And in order to make the sound even a little bit rounder, we use like a little foam here that mutes the sounds a little bit, but gives it also like a fuller sound as well, like playing closer to the neck for bass players. Those little tricks that really helps to kind of make your sound a little fuller, really fit this song really well.
There was a moment where you guys changed the groove. Can you explain that and how you worked it out?
We did, and so Brian, both of us, we kind of had an initial groove that we were playing. Somehow it just didn't sit right. So Brian actually had the thought to kind of change a little bit the pattern, and that made a huge difference of the way the whole song actually felt. Those little details, the fact that we just talked about it, discussed it, tried it out, and it made a world of difference in the way the song kind of came across. And I really encourage any bass player and drummers to really talk to each other as they're just playing the song, or even after, discussing the groove, what they're going to play, make sure it's really intentional that they play together and figure out a pattern. So
yeah, and you guys do a great job with this. I mean, I'll say this on every instructional video just because I'm one that always tends to rush, especially you're playing with the click and the click don't lie. I mean, how did you learn how to keep the click in your head and yet have a feel and a groove at the same time? How did you develop that?
The funny thing is there's playing with the click, and then there's playing with the click and a drummer. And you got to find that balance between just listening to the click, but listening to the drummer as well to become really musical. And I think today, with all the tracks playing, a lot of people just listen to the click and just lock with it, and they forget to listen to the human aspect of the drummer that's playing. To be able to find that balance in between the two is very big, and just be a great listener. And I think Brian is just so great at this, and he's so musical. And today, even listening to him and having the click there as a reference, but really him and I kind of listening to each other and locking into that pattern, so important and so huge to be able to do that.
All right, Brian, what a great job. Just recorded the song Praises, and you were just explaining. I made a crappy demo of the song to give everybody an idea of what it sounds like. And I had a groove on there, and through the whole rehearsal process, you changed it. So I think it'd be interesting if you kind of sang to everybody what my groove was and why you changed it, and then what the new groove is.
I will say that it's always important to make sure that it's okay to change the groove. Tommy is always all right with us experimenting with stuff. If he really is wanting something a certain way, we'll do it that way. But he's kind of more like, all right, let's figure out what works. So Sam and I, this is important with you drummers and bass players. It's important to be having a conversation, because if it's not feeling right, if it's not working, there's a reason it's not working. And some of it could be you got to practice more, you need to figure out what the other person's playing. But we were playing, the groove was like boom, 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 which is a great groove. And the demo he had actually was cool. The drum groove that was on there was GarageBand drum groove, but it was great. But for some reason, when Sam and I, we kept doing the run through, and it just wasn't feeling right. It wasn't settling where it needed to settle. So then he and I were talking, and we said, okay, what if we did like boom, 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 and it kind of just made the whole thing go, oh, and it settled in. I hope you feel the same way.
That's interesting, because that last eighth note kind of lands the plane low. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Like that changes everything. But
it just changed it for us, and I feel like that can be the case. I mean, sometimes it's not adding more. Sometimes it's taking away a note, playing more simple, or sometimes it's 16th notes instead of 8th notes, or the opposite. The bass player maybe should play straighter, and the drums will just do 4 on the floor. There's a variety of things you can change, but if it's not feeling right, you got to figure out why it's not feeling right and make some changes.
One thing was interesting for me after making the demo and then hearing you play it and hearing us all play it. The song is just kind of this long journey that just goes on and on and on, but it has lots of space in it. So that means when it's time for a drum fill, like all the drum fills are gigantic and really long, but such a common thing is drummers will rush their drum fills. But you were just we call it putting weight on the drum fills. Like, how did you learn how, when you're playing with a click or whatever, to just talk yourself out of rushing the drum fills? How do you do that?
A lot of times, I mean, there's still times it happens, I'm sure. I know when I do it, it's like, oh, that was a little ahead. But I think now, especially with technology we have our phones. I would say, drummers, while you're playing, put the phone across the room and record yourself playing with some fills. And then just see and listen back. Does it feel like the end of the fills always kind of like topple over? They kind of rush right back in, or you're playing with a metronome, and to get the fill finished, you have to kind of rush the end of the fill to make sure you get back in time. And it's really interesting to listen back, because behind the kit, it may be like, oh, that felt great. But I know there's been different times I've been in the studio, I'll go in and listen in the control room, and I'll be like, I didn't do that. That was like right on the money. But what's happening, if you listen to it, there's little discrepancies in the time when you're going around the kit. And so it's important to be able to hear and know, like, hey, you know what? When I do this fill, I always kind of drag this last part. I need to make sure that I push it ahead, even though I think I'm not. After a while, it becomes natural in your muscles to play it exactly in time. And so it's really important to practice that as much as you can.
I mean, I should save it for another video, but another thing you're really great at is dynamics. Playing really loud when it should be loud, and really soft, and kind of playing to the room. It's harder than ever with in-ears in this day and age, but do you have any thoughts on how you develop that?
When I was young, no one wants to play quiet, and no one wants to play with hot rods, and no one wants to play a small little kit. You want to play a big kit with sticks and be able to go for it, because that's what's fun. But as I've gotten older, and this may not be a fun answer, but as I've gotten older, it now kind of excites me to be able to create a musical sound that the whole room is enjoying, not just me. Like, the audience is enjoying it because I'm not blasting them away. The guys or girls on the stage are enjoying it because they're not like, oh, it's so loud, I can't even hear my keyboard, or whatever it is. So being able to make music together now is much more fun, because it's grooving and I can hear the solo. So if that means I need to play with hot rods in a space, I will. If that means, you bring a smaller kit with cymbals that aren't quite as bashy, then make that call. They got like big fat snare drum now that you can put on the snare to kind of cut it down. They got different cymbals. A lot of times guys and girls are using the wrong size drums for a room. Like, the kick is way too big, the toms are way too big, the cymbals are too heavy. And even if you're like, hey, I'm trying to play quieter and softer, it's just working against you because the drums are just too big, and you're in a basketball gym with a stage or something, and you're trying to be like, the drums are still too loud, and you're like, I can't go any softer, and you're fighting with the sound person. But it's important to try to say, okay, well, maybe we need to invest in smaller drums, find some used stuff that's smaller and lighter. So I kind of make that call. This, isn't a great example of holding back. I mean, in the middle of it, we really go for it, but we really go for it, but there's other times we weren't playing as loud. So, when you're listening to a song, like you always say, you can get away with playing loud sometimes if you've also been playing soft, so that people will go, oh, it's okay, it got a little big, but then it went down again. That's always a great point when you say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what creates a musical adventure is when things are changing, as opposed to it's always the same volume, it's always the same whatever. So to be really loud and really soft kind of takes you on the journey. Anyways, it's funny to me, I did this demo on GarageBand. I love the name GarageBand because I was in garage bands. That's why I like to put a skeleton of a demo together and then I bring it to these guys and I want their input. And that's part of the joy of music, is creating it together. And so really, this was kind of a garage band, what we came up with.
But that's also helpful too, because then I also kind of know at least kind of the direction you're wanting to go in. Sometimes when someone shows up and they're like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Play it this way. And, the other musician's like this? No, not like that, And so you're just going back and forth. You taking the time to kind of prepare a little bit ahead of time gives me a head start, to go, oh, I get it. It's kind of like this thing. And then you can go from there into some other ideas. All right, Tommy, this is the first of our Psalm 33 sessions series. This song is called Praises. Tell us why we're doing this series, what it's about, and what we can look forward to.
Yeah, I just have a heart for musicians, especially musicians that are serving in their local church. Any humble way that I and we can inspire them to be the best that they can be, that we can be the best we can be, and strive after excellence. That's what the Psalm 33 is talking about, is to sing a new song to the Lord, which is a big part of what I do, and to play skillfully. And that's why we're doing this little talk now. Just want to inspire all you guys out there to make it great, A lot of times we're playing on the worship team and we're thinking, man, maybe someday I'll be good enough to get off the worship team and go do some other cool thing. But why don't we make our worship teams incredible and make the music in the church the greatest in the world? That's how it used to be. So that's the idea of the series. And that's why I started off with these guys who are just such amazing musicians. But also just to remember, worship is not singing. Worship is giving our hearts and our adoration to the Lord and doing it through instruments and singing in many different ways. But this is about musicianship in a big way. So this song to me is just a deep, deep worship song. Believe it or not, I probably wrote this, you were a young child when I wrote this many, many, many years ago. It came up in my phone. I thought, wow, that feels so worshipful. And also, there's lots of guitar solos in it. I want to inspire more musicianship to be expressed amidst worship. Not that it's like, now we're not going to worship anymore, we're going to jam, but to really learn how to worship with your instrument. And that's a big part of why I wrote this song. And also, going all the way back, I can remember seeing a worship gathering in London at Piccadilly Circus, and there was a circle of people worshiping, and I thought, man, it's so amazing that they're worshiping in front of this secular crowd and people passing by. And I thought, what would it be like if we could bring to a non-believer just excellence and yet showing them our relationship with God through worship at the same time? And so this song really represents trying to do that as well. As far as my playing, we created this arpeggiated thing going through it, and then we got the Rhodes going. And so as far as rhythm guitar goes, it was basically non-existent because I just wasn't needed. I just played a few whole notes. One of the most common mistakes is the piano player's going ba-da-ba-da-da-da on a song and the guitar player's going da-da-da-da-da. They're not listening to each other. Just a mess of rhythmical stuff. Either let him be busy and you just play the whole note, or vice versa. Anyways, this was my chance to not do really hardly any rhythm. I purposely, on the verses, I'm going praises, and then I'm playing on the guitar, echoing my voice worship with my playing worship. It was all more that approach, which is a bit different. For me, I'm always trying to remember not to rush, Don't rush, Tommy. Listen to Brian. Listen to the click. A trick I do, I'll be strumming, and every once in a while I'm checking in. I'll stop strumming. Okay, I'm not rushing. Okay, I'm rushing. It's something that helps me. I just think the last thing I'll say is just those guitar solos. I'm trying to not just play all my licks, but like listen to what I'm playing while I'm playing it and say, if I was singing this, what would I sing to the Lord right now? In this song, the solo is pretty simple, but I'm trying. It's tempting to just shred, and just play a bunch of notes. Trying to hear what it is, and so I can express worship that way.
And I love the other thing that you say is when you started writing songs for your church and you were also thinking about the musicians on your worship team. I love this, that you said that you were also thinking of them, not just the congregation, you were thinking of the musicians.
That's right. I'm always thinking, if I've got a violinist in my church that's a part of the worship team, man, I want to give him or her a moment to, they've been practicing their whole life. Like, why not let them play a prelude or play something that really lets them express and use the depths of the gift that they have, and to just give the musicians something inspiring to play so that they'll want to come back and rehearse next week. I don't only think about the congregation, but I think about these people that are usually, and in our church as well, they're volunteers. Like, let them express their gift. And it goes right back to the purpose of this whole series, just to inspire musicianship. Yeah, and you can go to TommyWalkerMinistries.org, and all the charts and stems for this song will be free, so you can learn the song. Everything's free there. We want you to grab those charts, and we have other instructional videos. Keep growing as a musician. Whatever you do, whatever form it is, don't stop growing. Don't start pursuing getting better at the gift that God has given you. We're excited for the songs that are yet to come, and I hope you'll be blessed and inspired to worship and to lead others into worship. Amen.